What is up, Hive Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and today we're going to talk about a study, a systematic review, a meta-analysis. And remember, meta-analysis are very important for understanding the breadth of the evidence that we have out there, so we get kind of a better picture of what the situation is. And this study is actually looking at what I've been doing recently, looking at individual videos of people losing weight and their experiences. This is basically the study version of that, and I'm excited to get into it. So let's go ahead and break it down in this video. Stay tuned. Before we start, one great way to help you burn calories and burn fat is doing cardio, not just because of the calories that you burn during the exercise, but because of the afterburn effect that in many studies show can last up to 38 hours after your initial cardio workout. Those are calories that you could be leaving on the table. And why not pick one of the cardios that burn the most calories per minute when exercising? So what am I talking about? Jump ropes. So you can get the Fledge fitness jump rope for only $16.50. You don't have to break the bank and get this super high expensive jump rope. This has an ergonomic design, aluminum handle, and swivel design, and you can't go wrong with the Fledge fitness jump rope for that price. You can click on the top right hand corner of this video or down in the description box below. And of course, as always guys, thank you for your support. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the video. Now this study was published January 17th, 2021 in the International Journal of Qualitative Studies on Health and Well-Being. The study was run by Marie Spreckley and colleagues and looked at a collective database of over 15 peer-reviewed studies that made the final cut that had over 294 people. This study asked simply one question: how did you keep the weight off? Now, before I dive into what was extrapolated from the data, from the meta-analysis, from synthesizing this data, I want to definitely explain one thing. Efficiency and longevity are not one and the same thing. You might find a diet that is incredibly efficient, that when you did this diet, it helped you burn fat specifically more quickly, or helped you maintain muscle, or helped you retain more muscle than another diet. But you couldn't keep this diet up, so you fell off after 3 or 4 months. So when it's all said and done, even though maybe this person, person B, was doing a diet that took her 6-7 months to do what you did in 2 months, 3 years from now, she will be in a better position. Although your diet was incredibly effective in an acute state, in a short-term state, she has been overall efficient because of her longevity. So, for example, intermittent fasting is a perfect example. Intermittent fasting does oxidize fat because of the process of your body having to create ketones to supplement the lack of glucose, and the ketones deriving itself from fatty acids, which get oxidized and then burned and lost. You're burning fat, you're partitioning fat in terms of the energy burn. You're grabbing more of the body fat as opposed to grabbing something else like muscle, for example, or just having constant glucose buildup and grabbing glucose. So it makes it pretty efficient for fat burning. But if you can't do intermittent fasting for more than 3 months, more than 4 months, it is not the diet for you to actually do. You should be doing something else, because that's where adherence falls into play, and why I've always put adherence above all other diets, even intermittent fasting, because adherence will matter when the curtain calls, when everything is over. Can you stick to your diet? So this study looked at all of these different participants, over 294 people, and there were some similarities across them, but they didn't really dive into any specific diet in the study itself. It's not that they were doing a specific diet. The study itself didn't really look into just the specifics of what diet they were doing exactly. It just kind of wanted to understand what made them stick to whatever diet that they chose. So they had so many different diets that they were doing, and this is the case for any diet. Somebody might do it and fall off, someone else might do it and stick to it. But what were the characteristics of why they did not come off of the diet that they were doing? And it's interesting because many of these characteristics are the same ones that we've seen in these individual looks at these YouTubers that were losing, that have lost a lot of weight. One of the characteristics that they used were visual tools, pictures, looking at the mirror, checking how much they weigh on the scale. Just little visual cues to see, are they losing weight? Are they not? How do their clothes fit when they put it on? How they feel? Those were elements that they used to understand where they were and if they were going to go back to where they were before. This was a way to stave off gaining weight. Calorie management tools, which can be anything. Intermittent fasting is a form of calorie management because you compress your meals into a shorter window. You don't graze, which means you don't eat little things here and there outside of your window, reducing your calorie intake for the day, helping you control calorie intake, giving you a more cognitive awareness of how much you're eating. Same thing with just calorie counting. For some people, just compressing the window and being cognitive of what you're eating within that window is an easier proposition than constantly checking and measuring what they're eating throughout the day. Having clear relapse protocols, because guess what? It doesn't matter who you are. There are going to be moments where you fall off and you have to get back on. Especially you have to get back on before you fall way too off to the point where you're now back to square one. So you have to have systems in place. What do you do to blunt that, going in the opposite direction? Group and peer support. So for example, this YouTube channel provides group and peer support because there's a comment section. Everyone's constantly talking to each other, talking about their experiences and other people's experiences and looking at other people's experiences. Also, Facebook group chats and groups in Facebook, things of that nature. It kind of helps you, even in real life. When you're with a friend who's also on the journey with you, you hold each other accountable. So that kind of group is almost like peer pressure to continue to live a healthy lifestyle. So those were kind of the elements of what they used to keep the weight off. There isn't anything special. The specialness is, can you stick to it? Efficiency is great. Getting weight off fast is good if you could do it in a healthy way because you want to get to your goals as quickly as possible. I 100% get that. But the most important thing is always going to be the adherence part, because that's when, like I said, when the curtain calls, when the curtains close, what matters is, were you able to stick to it in the long term? Now, every study, every meta-analysis are the best types of studies that you can look at. But even with this being just somewhat of a questionnaire and just kind of picking the brain of all the individual participants and trying to create a kind of a straight line between all of their different reasonings for why they stuck to the diet. They even use a thematic synthesis approach to the qualitative research to kind of construct the ideologies or the thoughts and experiences of each individual to kind of put it in structure, try to create some structure for it. So there's that, it's kind of an open-ended thing where they have to try to create structure so that they can give you a general understanding of the experiences of these participants. But also, it comes with, the limitations of recall bias. A lot of people sometimes retell a story from the positive memories that they have and versus the negative memories that they have. They may remember one thing and not remember another in moments of the word that were critical, that could have changed the direction of them keeping the weight off or not. They may not remember those moments because they may have done a positive thing and they just continue doing that. So there's obviously limitations here, especially in a type of study where you're looking at somewhat of the psychology of the participants rather than the biology of the participants in terms of the physiology of the participants, what exactly is going on with their body. That's easier to measure and put into on paper, but how they feel, what they did, what their experiences were, that's much difficult to pull off. So kudos to the research team that did actually pull this off. It was very well done. It was great to see the characteristics, and it's in line with what you would think would be the case for someone that is key, that for someone who has kept weight off. I hope this study was very enlightening for you. It is a good kind of sidestep to looking at the individual YouTubers. I think the individual YouTubers is really great because it's visually appealing, but this is looking at the science of that. And I think that that's very, very good, especially me being a science and studies guy and wanting to focus more on that than anything else. The link to the study will be down in the description box below. And of course, I want to thank my patrons for my Patreon. I'm going to go ahead and put their names right up here.